Hello, and welcome to day 26 of Junk Journal January. My name is Wendy Solganic, and you may or may not know me from Instagram as at willa.wanders. I first want to thank Meg for inviting me to be a part of Junk Journal January. Oh, pen flew out. And my prompt is Wordy. And the reason why I chose this as my prompt is because a kind of basic part of what I do in my art is I write a lot. And this happens to be a journal that I made in a course called Journal into Your Art by Megan Quinlan. And I'm just going to flip through this journal because you can see what I'm talking about when I say that I write a lot. I am very wordy and I connect with my journaling because of the writing primarily. And then also, of course, I love to make art. I love to use paint and cut things out and do all that stuff. But I am really connecting with the thoughts and ideas that I'm putting into my junk journals. So no matter what journal I'm working in, you can guarantee that there are going to be words on the pages. So not every single page, but you can see that I don't go very far before I'm writing out quotes or writing out thoughts. No matter what I'm doing. If I'm watercoloring in a journal, you're gonna see that there are words on the pages. Now, the thing that I hear so frequently is I don't like my handwriting and I don't know what to do about it because I'm afraid of ruining my journal pages with my handwriting. So I want to use my time with you today to talk about handwriting and hand lettering and what the difference is and how I have been doing this thing essentially since I'm about 5 years old, where I'm playing with the shapes of letters. And that is basically why I'm really confident about writing in my journals. So let's get to it. I'm going to talk about basically lettering confidence. And I don't mean fancy calligraphy necessarily or using, difficult to use pens. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some pretty basic stuff and how to get comfortable with it. So I'm going to be working on either graph paper or dot grid paper. And the reason why I'm going to do that is if you struggle with confidence with your handwriting, it can help to use paper that's ruled or, ruled in any way. Again, grid, dot grid, just ruled in some way so that you have some boundaries to the size of your letters. Oftentimes I hear people say, I don't like my handwriting. And I have to be honest with you, I don't necessarily like my handwriting either. And this is the most important point of what I'm trying to share today. When I am writing in my journal, if I care about how it looks, I'm not using my handwriting to write in my journals. I'm actually using lettering. And again, not fancy lettering, just lettering. And in the same way that someone might pay attention to how they draw the shape of a leaf, let's say, and they think about it and they decide, is it going to have a pointy end? How wide is it going to be? What angle is that leaf going to be at? Do I like the shape of this leaf? Do I want to try a different kind of leaf? Maybe I want a leaf that's round on the end. Maybe I want a small leaf. Maybe I want to vary the size of those leaves. So when I draw leaves, I'm thinking about all of these things. Again, not overthinking it. It becomes pretty natural. but I am thinking. So, in the same way that I would draw an object and think about it, when I do hand lettering, I'm thinking about the structure of the letter that I'm writing. So, let's just look at the letter A. We have capital A and we have lowercase a, and there are many, many different ways to draw the letter A. I can make it pointy. I can put the part that goes across, which I don't know the technical name from, toward the top. I can put that toward the bottom. I can make my A wider. I can make it wider and a little curvier at the top and at the bottom. So that's just the beginning. I mean, there's a million ways to make a capital A. You can actually make a script capital A. Now let's just talk about lowercase a. And we're just having fun. We're just playing with letters. So what are all the different ways you can make a lowercase a? I remember when I was a kid, I was really into looking at the letter A and deciding if my letter A was going to be one of these kinds of A's or if my letter A was going to be one of these kinds of A's. And I think I spent years going back and forth between the two different types of A's and figuring out, was I this kind of person or this kind of person? And that's what this is all about for me. Am I a tall, thin letter A with the cross part going high? Or am I a wide letter A with the cross down here? Or am I something in between? Do I like it in the middle? So what I suggest doing is taking every single letter of the alphabet and playing around with variations of it. So if I'm going to do a capital B, which if you just want to do a very basic B, there you go. But maybe you want to have a B that's very large on the top and smaller on the bottom. I'm going to do that one again because I didn't love it. That's a B. This is a B. Let's see what else we could do with B. We could go like that. So you see, there's just many different forms of B. Now let's do lowercase b. Here's your basic lowercase b. What about if you made a really small part at the bottom? What if you did something like that? They all kind of start out the same with that line. What if, let's see, what could I do that would be interesting to a lowercase b? I really like a lowercase b kind of like that. So I would do this for every single letter of the alphabet and come up with as many variations on each letter that you can. Some letters are more difficult to come up with variations on because the letters themselves are just pretty simple. Like how many different C's can you come up with? I'm not sure that I have the capacity to come up with that many different C's, capital C's, or even lowercase c's. I don't know if I can come up with that many. But what happens when you start looking at the forms is you start sensing that there's certain shapes that you prefer. And let's see, this one got all smudgy, but let's see what kind of A I kind of like. I like to do something either exaggerated low or exaggerated high. So I like both of these. And then for my lowercase a, I kind of like it where it's kind of an exaggerated, I don't know, it's just it's small and then it's exaggerated. I wish I knew the correct terms for this, but the fact that I don't know the correct terms just points out that this is just not something that you need to do in any perfect way or be a calligrapher or anything like that. You can absolutely do this and not know the proper names for any of this stuff. By the end of playing with all of the letters, you're going to have an alphabet that is your signature alphabet. And that is what I would encourage you to start using if you don't have confidence with your lettering. I tend to mix up my capitals and my lower cases. So now let's write out a quote. Okay, so that is not my handwriting. If I wrote this out in my handwriting, it would not be very pretty. So it's just simple hand lettering, carefully selected from the letter forms that I have been playing around with for quite a while. So I've got my quote, I've got my words that are kind of my focal words, vulnerability and courage. If I was doing this in a journal, I might want to play around with the focal words like vulnerability. So I might do something where I emphasize the downstrokes. This is called faux calligraphy, where I go back in and I thicken up all of the downstrokes. And I can choose when I do this to go either to the right or the left of the downstroke, depending on where there's some extra space between the letters. So now I've got kind of a focal word. Maybe I want to do this one a little bit differently. I'll do more faux calligraphy, but I won't fill it in, just to show you what that would look like. So again, it's just wherever there's a downstroke, I'm going to add another stroke. I've got to look for where is there some room between the letters. If there's no room between two letters, I'm not going to thicken it up there. Okay, so it's definitely not rocket science. I definitely go slowly and I think about what do I want each letter to look like. I'm not rushing through it. I'm not using my regular everyday handwriting. I'm using basically a font that I have created myself. And you can see that I mix up the lowercase and the capitals. Sometimes I use capital R, sometimes I use lowercase r. It just depends on sort of how I'm feeling at that moment. Some letters I kind of always capitalize and some I always do in lowercase, but I probably, for the most part, I'm pretty flexible on lowercase and capitals. And I probably do have, you know, more than just this alphabet. Let's say I have an A, and I do have, you know, the way I like the lowercase a. I'm always smudging because I'm a lefty. So I want to take this quote and I want to then put it in a journal so I can show you this in action. So I've got this book that I just put together. It's got just a lot of excess jelly prints that I have. And what I thought would be really cool is to use spaces that I find in the book to add quotes. Now I have to decide, am I going to use my everyday pen, which is a Uniball Air Micro, and I did a blog post on my favorite pens for junk journaling, and I will put a link to that blog post that I wrote in the description of this video. I can either use my standard pen or I could go for a different pen altogether, depending on what I think is going to work best on the surface and how thick I want my lines to be. Now, because this is kind of deep already, I'm wondering if using a pen that has a thicker line might be better for this. And I think it will. So I've got this one, which is a Foodie Ball 1.5. Let's see who makes this. Can I read these letters this small? I don't know. It's in my blog post. But Dina Wakely was actually the person who introduced me to this pen. All of the pens that I use are pens that are tried and true, and they write on most every surface. And that's why I recommend them for journaling, because a lot of pens do not write on paint surfaces. So I'm going to write this quote, and I'm going to write it on this acrylic paint using this Foodie Ball 1.5. So and I have to be careful again because I'm a lefty. I don't want to smudge right over these letters. So sometimes I have to move my hand around. You can see I'm not doing it exactly the way I did it on my practice sheet. I'm just like, okay, what do I feel like doing, a capital or doing a lowercase? All right, since I know that this is going to be my focal point word, I'm just going to go in right now and do some faux calligraphy. It also helps the word pop off the page. I do a lot of exaggerating. So I've got a pretty small O, I've got a pretty long lowercase t. I'm exaggerating that W. The middle part is higher than the left and the right. I love to exaggerate my lowercase e by stopping short of just making it go fully around. I just take so much joy in lettering. Like, I'm so happy to share this with you. I think about these letter shapes. I have been thinking about these letter shapes for literally most of my life. I guess you could say it has been a personal passion of mine for a very long time. I love to express myself this way. I love to think about the quotes that I write out. It's very meditative to think about the quotes that I find that touch me, that I want to put in my journals. Okay, a last finishing touch is, of course, you want to credit the person whose quote it is. So oftentimes I'll just go in with my everyday pen that has a finer point. Again, this Uniball Air Micro, and then I'll put the author's name, just kind of small and cute, under the quote. So there you go. I encourage you to get wordy with your junk journals and forget about your handwriting. If you are someone that wants to make artistic pages and you're not confident about your handwriting, learn your letter language. Learn the letters that you love, and you will be much happier, I think, using your journals as a way to express yourself verbally and putting words onto your pages. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and if you want to do some wordy junk journaling, please tag me at willa.wanders on Instagram and show me what you did. Thanks for watching.